Another exciting show with our amazing advocate and activist, Mama G. So we're ready to bring Mama G in. She's always got amazing things happening in her community and things that she is working on. And she's brought us some very talented guests today that'll be talking about what they've got going on in this activism space. So, as you know, I'm working at Hey Tide today, but I'm going to bring in Mama G, and she's got all kinds of things that she's got going on. And I know she's got some amazing guests that she's going to introduce us to and all along those lines. So I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'll be popping in with questions as well. But I know you've got these amazing guests, and I look forward to hearing their conversation and what they're all about because I know that y'all are working on some amazing activism.
Yes, indeed, Mark. Yes, indeed. I am so excited today. Um, I have two amazing people on this. Two amazing people. One I've known for a good while, 3 or 4 years now, and then the other one um, I just met, but I spirit got the same spirit. I want to introduce today first Dr. Gretchen Bianca. Dr. Gretchen, we met 3 years ago at a restorative justice conference. And she was at the time trying to work with uh, children who had been traumatized um, and trying to get us to move away from uh, making these labeling kids and kind of normalizing some things. And I'll let her tell you more about that. But she's out of Maine. And then I have the most amazing Mr. Makai Elohim. I don't know what he does, but I tell you, he has a spirit that is wow, powerful. He has a very powerful spirit. So I hope to get a chance for you to him to talk to us a little bit about his passion and what he's doing, and I'm hoping that I'm going to get a chance to have the opportunity to work with him in the future. So, Dr. Gretchen and Dr. Gretchen and Mr. McKay, welcome, welcome, welcome.
All right.
Hi, thank you.
So, Makai,
Yes, I.
I know my sister got a lot to tell us too. So why don't you start out
Uh,
tell us about
uh,
Mr. Makai Elohim?
yes, I. My name is Mikhail Elohim. I am a librarian at Duke University. Um, I am a community activist. I have had the pleasure and the experience of walking amongst many faiths and different people, and I have a love for service. So I I am recently met Mama G, and as she has said, we have very similar spirits, and I look forward to doing much work with her in the future.
Thank you, Dr. Gretchen. Talk to us about your work and
Yeah. Well, it's so nice to reconnect with you. I when I first met you, I had just started trying to develop tools that we could use in primary care. I'm a pediatrician, so that pediatricians, family doctors, other primary care providers could help families who were struggling with kind of the consequences of trauma without even really knowing what was happening. So their kids are getting kicked out of preschool. That was one thing we connected about was don't kick the babies out of preschool. But how to help the families explain to the universe what was happening with their child, starting with how I could help the parents understand what's happening with their child so they didn't just discipline their child for bad behavior if their child actually had some other unmet need or big emotion. And so I've been working on this for years, and I just published a book with the American Academy of Pediatrics called Coaching Families for Resilience: How Pediatricians Can Prevent Burnout and Support Caregivers. And it's a manual for doctors to have in their office so that they can help families basically work on that relational health between the parent and the child, or between the child and their teacher, or child and care, whatever's going wonky, to help the child regulate their emotions and not act out quite so much from big feelings. And then to help the parents understand, oh yeah, that might be related to my own big feelings. Maybe I should stop blaming him for having a bad day and sending him to his room. And then I've taken it to schools as well, and I've presented to teachers and school nurses who really appreciate. I use this analogy and I say, well, if you saw a child and he suddenly collapsed having a seizure in the hallway, you wouldn't just stand over him and tell him to stop disrupting the day and get up. I mean, he's having a seizure.
Right.
Something's going on with his brain. He needs help. You put him on his side. You may not be able to change anything, but you can keep him safe until it's over. Why don't we do that for children who are having trauma responses? It should be exactly the same thing. So I try to normalize that when I'm talking to physicians, any sort of medical provider, teachers. I just think we should all approach kids that way universally. Like, whatever's going on, there's a reason, something's happening in their brain. Likely that they need some help from regulated, calm adults. And if we just get all worked up and start yelling, then nobody's calm. So that's been my hope, is I can help with that. So nice to be here.
As an advocate, that's one of the things that I find that is a little troubling. And so when we talk about that mental health piece, I think, and that's one of the things that I was saying to our superintendent. Why we don't have a mental health day for these teachers?
Mm-hmm.
You should have a mental health day. I don't care if it's in it is them getting involved in some drumming and releases of whatever, whether it is them have a party for them to just release some of the anxiety, because they come into the space with their own trauma. And as I advocate for children, I hear children say that I'm tired of hearing my teacher sit and talk about all her problems. I got my own problems. you know, and every day almost every day, every other day, they have a different teacher because short of staff.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine the effect that that's having on their psyche.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And they got all this stuff going on. So,
well, and that's one of those protective factors that I feel so passionate that everyone should have equal access to, like 2 non-parent adults who took a genuine interest in your life. That's proven to offset the impact of trauma. But in today's world, we don't live with the elders. We don't live, we're all over the map. People are spread from their grandparents, from their aunties, their uncles, and teachers they come and they go, and sometimes you don't have that person, and it could be a crossing guard, just somebody who says, hey buddy, nice to see you again. How's your knee, or how is soccer? Somebody who cares. So I'm trying to impress upon providers, clinicians, that can be us. We can be the one who's like, and even if a kid goes to foster care, they often try to keep them with the same pediatrician. So we can be like, oh my gosh, how are you? This is a lot. It's good to see you again. How are you hanging in there? And like, we can be a point of contact that doesn't change through their childhood. Like, I know that doctor really cared about me. So, I love the work that you're doing. And I think the more that we can let people know, just anybody and everybody, whoever you are, you can be that person for some child.
And that's that hypocrisy in the culture of organization, because we have to change the way people have worked, the culture that we built in these organizations, because we bring ourself, we bring our biases, we bring our whatever, we bring it into the space, and then we empty it on the children. We
absorb it.
We lack empathy. We don't have the empathy. We don't show empathy to the children.
Well, I think maybe because we lack the knowledge of empathy ourselves.
Yes, my point exactly.
And I believe it becomes a generational thing, to where if I haven't learned to tap inside of myself to find empathy even for myself, then it's hard for me to develop it and to show it to the next generation.
Yes,
So it becomes a generational
yes,
out,
and
you know.
down generation, and I'm exactly the adults. The adults don't come in any different really than the children do.
Mm.
As a matter of fact, they add to. A lot of times they add to because a child, if a child is mostly about. I mean, you can easily find joy in a child. You can easily
Mm.
find that joy. You can make them smile, or not this easily severely traumatized. You know what I'm saying? But when you if that's being 6 hours a day, and I go from one place to the other one, and I, the adult, I'm wearing all this stuff. I'm wearing all this stuff, and that child over there who has the, how do you call it, the not trauma but the consequence of trauma, who has the consequence of trauma, and they have to be the recipient of that. They internalize it and become angry, um, and you'll see their behavior. That behavior may change from, like mine did. It changed from those highly academic, performing kids to these kids who hated school and they hated everything about school, because that's what they had to face every day. Teachers were complaining about not enough help. They were emptying their problems on the children,
Mhm.
so what do you do about that?
Yes, I wanted to ask, what are some of the tools that can be used when a child is acting out of trauma?
So, one of the ones that when you said that, if somebody has an experience, like somebody being like empathetic with them, like it's something that if it's totally foreign, like how are we expecting people to do this? And one of the tools that I find myself teaching a lot is validation, which sounds good, right? I know how to validate people. Sure, you're great. You rock. You got this. And then they're like, wait, no, what is validation? Like, I don't know what validation is. I don't know if I was really validated as a child. But so when a child is upset, instead of doing the be quiet, calm down, there's nothing to get upset about, sit in your seat, behave, is to validate what's happening. Whoa, yeah, that's upsetting, huh? That really got to you. How can you take care of yourself? And then allowing the child to have a moment to take care of themselves. And they've shown that actually validating 3 times in a row to a child who's really upset helps them to regulate because they
Um,
feel heard. They're not alone. And they're like, he gets me. That guy gets me. Even if you just say, boy, that was upsetting. Man, anybody would be upset if somebody spilled your lunch. That's awful. That's it. Like, that's all it is. But then he's like, he understands me. And then the kid may not escalate and go after he's like turns away from it and feels validated. And then you can say, okay, now what would help you before you have to go back to class? Should we take a walk? You want to listen to music? And hopefully, if they have a 504 or an IEP, maybe they have permission to go listen to music or talk to the counselor or, get some exercise, get some of the energy out. But that's one of my favorite ones.
that's
Easiest.
that's a malleable training. So those are the kind of strategies that are in the book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's just so simple. And when I teach this to teachers and to people in the schools and to nurses and doctors, they're like, oh, yeah. And it's so funny. My husband does it with me and I'll be upset about something and he'll start validating. I'm like, don't you validate me. I know what you're up to. I'm mad. So I'm going to stay mad. But it is a really useful tool if you let it in.
You must have read the book.
Yeah.
Wow. So, do you think the name of the book? I don't know. Where is Mark? Mark, is anybody? Mark, have we had any folks come on yet? Oh, he's gone.
He's gone. That's right. This is a fun conversation, whether anyone's here or not.
How am I supposed to know if anybody comes on or not? How do I know? I don't know.
I don't know either. I have no idea.
There he is.
There he
There
is.
you are. There you are.
Yeah. So far, no comments and nobody's come in yet and everything. But y'all are having a fun conversation. I was just letting the conversation go and everything like that. But y'all are having a very good conversation, and it is a much needed conversation about what's going on with our young people and all along those lines. So yeah, y'all were doing well.
Thank you, Mark. Do you have any questions yet, Mark?
I'll keep on listening. I may have some in a minute, but I'll let y'all continue the conversation. But I was loving hearing what Gretchen was saying, as well as yourself and others. But yeah, just keep the conversation going.
Okay.
All right. Calling on Mark. Calling on Mark. Thank you, Mark.
Mm.
Thank you. So yeah, this whole thing with the trauma, you know, my team is right now really working with the decolonization piece and the internalized race oppression piece, because I think that is so important for us as people of color. If like anything else, if we don't ever accept it and address it, we don't have to accept it, but we have to acknowledge it. You know, but we have to acknowledge it before we can change things. You know, and it's not the thing that I like about the difference between me and my brother in Jamaica and Makai, he's supposed to be on a Zoom tomorrow night, so I hope I'll be on there and get a chance to meet him.
Okay.
The thing I like about him, he's a calm brother. He's so nice. He is so nice. Every time I get kind of foul, he's
Speaking of calm and all along those lines, and everything, I guess this is for Gretchen, but you kind of alluded to it. But one of the shows that the network does, meaning Pod TV, that I've been involved with for a while, is this notion of bullying and all along those lines. So there's a show called Where's the Love? It's actually Stephanie Hockenhall, who's out of Kansas, and her son, who is out of Tennessee, and everything like that. But they've been doing a show that deals with narcissism and gaslighting, and now they're on the healing journey and everything like that. So I just wondering, as one that's been in that field, your take on how big of a problem is the bullying epidemic to our folks?
Oh, yeah. That sounds like a beautiful podcast. I should listen. So, I mean, I think it's so many layers that we just have to be curious and start excavating what's going on. I think sometimes what's happening would really classify kind of as true bullying. But sometimes I think it just gets so complicated because you have normal childhood dynamics in schools, and we are so afraid of conflict that we want to like make everybody like, it's almost that I've been feeling lately that this whole push to have like zero tolerance for violence in the workplace, that is an excuse to smush people who are having trauma responses and tell them they have to go home. And you can't do that here. I'm like, okay, these are normal people having a normal life and a normal response to stuff. We need to make that part of their education. Like, how can I manage these big feelings in a way that doesn't mean that I end up making Susie cry or get, punching somebody in the face or swearing at the principal? That person who's having the big feelings, if they are acting like a bully, they need some help. They don't need to be sent back home where they're probably going to be treated poorly, called names, so that's one thing. One of my long-term hopes is that I can use the strategies that in my book to develop like an in-school alternate to being sent home suspended. Like, you can learn coping skills. You can say, yep, okay, this is how I know when I start to get angry. It starts like this. It's in the pit of my chest, comes big or it comes small, but I know I need to do something because I'm getting angry and I'm going to blow up, so the kid can start realizing this is happening and what can I do? And they know to either ask for help from a trusted adult or go to a break or whatever. But I think we're overemphasizing this. We just want everybody to stop fighting. We want everybody to be happy, and we want everybody quiet and everybody to be obedient. And it's just, I mean, we're humans. We're going to have, and kids are going to have moments where they don't get along. I think that's pretty normal and age appropriate at different times. So, I mean, I think the bullying thing has become its own. I don't know what you think, Geraldine, but I think it's just kind of become its own problem.
Well, I've seen the increase in bullying since the early 90s.
Yes.
Yeah. I've seen bullying just escalate, basically because bullying is left unaddressed. It's always left unaddressed because the teachers don't know what to do. Hell, these children who have IEPs, When you look at the strategies in their IEPs, they are so freaking sorry. They don't teach no intervention skills. You know, the intervention skills, and a lot of times those strategies are they are cut, copied, and pasted. You know what I'm saying. So
Not
child,
individualized. Yep.
child, can't, child can't learn to manage those behaviors if somebody's not teaching. So you got your teachers who don't know what the hell they're doing because they're so far behind in everything, and they're just cutting and pasting, just cutting and pasting. 'Cause they don't really understand the IEP first. Like, first of all, they don't really
Yeah.
understand. Then second of all, you have the folks who are the teachers who haven't read the IEP. They hadn't even read the IEP. You know, they're not adhering to whatever little strategies they do have. You know, that's where my advocacy comes in, and that's the thing that I find as an advocate that 99.9% of the time, this problem is that, and then they, as you say, and then they suspend them for the behavior, for for the behavior that they have been diagnosed with. You know, whatever those effects are, you suspend them for their behavior, which is a violation of IDEA,
Hmm.
you know. And so everything is just so screwed up within that whole system, and there's no accountability and whatever. And the child is always the one to get screwed over in the middle. So why do we have all these angry children? Why do you have them? Because they have the adults are making them angry.
So you're saying there's no checks and balances for um, the kids with emotional issues for the teachers. There's no checks and balances for the
Advocate,
teachers to
advocate,
implement the
advocate.
tools which are provided.
Well, this is what Gretchen is saying. We want to provide the teachers with these tools. What I am saying is currently no. They're, let me put it this way: if they are not using those tools. There may be tools, but they are not using those tools. Again, I'm gonna go back to saying that these teachers are so frustrated themselves. They got the same problems that we got in our homes, sometimes worse. You know,
So I wanted to ask one question with your restorative justice part. Would would the community be able to hold the school that is within the district accountable?
mhm.
Because we would see that a lot of the issues would have to do with a lot of the school issues also,
This
especially if you're talking about the young adults with restorative justice. Could that community have some say over the school, or at least have a check and balance over the school in which provides care for their children within that community?
now let me go to hypocrisy in the culture of organizations. You asked a very good question.
Mm.
First of all, you have peacekeeping circles, which this district paid out, got had over a million. I think it was like $20 million that
Wow.
they spent in training folks in peacekeeping circles. I got my little bit of money from Life Comes From It, and then decided I want to do some community based peacekeeping training because of my concept. The concept was is that we don't have circle keepers in the community, so we need to train a community of circle keepers. That way, uh, if we ever get this community support the way that we already have folks trained. So that's what I did around the funding that I had, and the district worked with me to do the training. But what the district did then was turned around and did not use didn't use the after getting all the funding, getting all the people trained, and all this kind of stuff. Then the teacher said, "I can't do it because I don't have time. I don't have time to sit these children in a circle and try to, you know, help them. Help them build these relationships, or acknowledge harm. Or you know, we don't have time for that." So, but they wasted all that money, for nothing. So the system is broken, very, very broken. Your superintendent can't hold. Right now, there's a whole department of folks in mental health, counselors, social workers, whatever, that are sitting in a pod, playing on their phones, calling me, telling me we ain't got no work. We ain't got nothing to do. We're sitting here all day long with nothing to do. Well, I'm going back to school. I'm gonna get my degree on. Since I can't work, I'm going back to school. So you have a conversation with the superintendent. He's always asshole. Half-ass. Well, this. Everything is simple, simple, or I don't care. Well, it's the principals that's supposed to be holding them accountable. Well, who holds the principals accountable? So that's the attitude that you have within that system, and every time, which is why I'm such an advocate for children. The children don't get a chance. They don't really stand a chance because the damn adults are so sick. The adults are so sick. So yes, there are. We try to partner with the school system to work with the parents. Like the kids that wouldn't really uh, work with the counselor or whatever. Okay, here's our flyer. Y'all help us do the work. Refer them to us so that we can build those relationships, not only with the district, but within the home. Be that liaison. Well, let's this is what they say. Well, let's get a volunteer form filled out. 3 months go by, 4 months go by, 5 months. Have you heard anything from the volunteer form? John, I ain't heard a thing. And many, 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 many people, that's what you hear them complain about, is that you talk about community engagement, you talk about parent involvement, but you don't welcome parents and the things that you do. I was a part of I led the community equity leadership team. This is before the Office of Equity. They haven't disbanded the Office of Equity, but I was working with the community. My role was just like you said, bringing issues to the district that I was advocating for parents. This is a problem. For instance, the piece about the narcotics, charging the kid with you don't even have a policy that defines what narcotics is. You know what I'm saying? But you're gonna charge somebody with narcotics that have had a drug test and they had found no narcotics in their system. You didn't see him smoking no weed. You didn't see him doing nothing wrong in the bathroom except for jumping up and down and shouting Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So y'all were having a drug party. You don't categorize that into a drug party. So it's really, I'm saying those suspensions have gotten worse. Not suspension, absenteeism have all across the country.
Yeah.
Has skyrocketed because kids don't be in school. They stay up all night long on their phones. They sleep all day long.
Mhm.
Parents are fighting like crazy. They disrespectful to their parents.
Mhm.
Parents are crying out. Can I get some help? This is why we talk about this thing where we taking the phones away from them and letting them go to Jamaica for a while
Mhm.
without a phone. They probably would have a stroke. A stroke output.
They might not be able to survive without that phone, Mama G. Just really quick, and this is for Mikhail as well as Gretchen also. But I know because I've worked at a testing company, it's one of the leading testing companies. Do you think that some of the schools are too caught up on the testing mindset? Because a lot of times they are uh, teaching to the test and everything like that. So is that part of the problem as well? So I'd love to hear your thoughts around that, Gretchen, and anybody else that's got thoughts on that also.
Well, I don't want to be the one to hog everything, but education has been my thing for the last 50 years. So, But let me talk about teaching to the test. Do you know the history of teaching to the test?
Right.
Do you know the history of teaching to the test?
I know some of it. I mean, they've been doing that for a while, and they do it because they want to get certain groups to have certain results and everything like that. So that's been a history of racism that has to do with the teaching to the test.
Well, it has to do with the nation being so damn far behind in education.
For that too. Mhm. Right.
That's what it has to do with. And they've been so far behind in education for God knows how long. So it's called student standard promotions was a part of the accountability measures for the states when it came to raising academic standards for students. And what happened was you had that piece that came along at the same time as No Child Left Behind and Zero Tolerance. All of them came all in together. They all came together. So then they tied the dollars. They tied the dollars to teaching. So if your school was not performing, if they scored an E on their state report card, then the teachers' salaries was cut. So testing was tied to teacher salary. That pissed folks off. And what they did was they started, and the population that was falling furthest behind was always the children who had uh, disabilities. So that was a period where if you didn't put them on some medicine, they couldn't stay in the school. If you did not put them on medicine, they in my hometown of Wilson, when we implemented long before everybody else did, before it became a law. Our superintendent was good for making up his own damn law. He was good for that. He was good for that. So he made up this law that he was going to hold kindergarten children back a year if they won't read it, and then if they won't, of course, according to the standards, if they didn't score starting at the third grade, if they didn't score a certain level, then they didn't make it to the next grade because they were held to the test. So at that time, we had our district had about 12,000 children, and every year we had 2,500, 3,000 children that were retained. That went on for a while until you had children boys, particularly black boys, who were 15, 16 years old, who were in the fifth grade. They maybe sometimes maybe before. I had one that was 16 and in the third grade because they couldn't pass the end of grade test. Mm-hmm. So at that time we trained parents in education law and policy, worked with the North Carolina Justice Center to write a piece of policy called the 2001 Fair Testing Act. And what the 2001 Fair Testing Act did was got it so the children had they had some, you couldn't just hold a child back. You had to have a portfolio of their work to hold them back, to actually, hold them back. But as I said, by that time, we had so many children that were so far behind. We had so many kids that was so far behind, and that's how I formed the word the homeschool prison cycle. So the school to prison pipeline came out of that work, what we call the active research, and just basically why are so many of these boys on the streets during the time they're supposed to be in school. And so God, there was so much that went on back then. I'm trying to tell you that has led to where we are today. Has led to where we are, and a lot of those kids are fathers now. That's all. I'm talking about 50 years. Mm-hmm. I've been doing this, and the cycle is repeating itself. The cycle is repeating itself. That's where I experienced as I was telling you, Makai, that's where I experienced the internalized racial oppression the worst. Was in that community. It was horrible. It was horrible, and right now the crime is so bad that the kids are most of the young people are got a whole community, not just a community, communities of kids on it because they have no interest in school. They've been told that they have a mental disability. They don't want to. They don't care about living. They don't think that they're gonna live past 16. The average one you talk to, uh, uh, I don't care if I need. They're fearless,
Mhm.
fearless, because the way they've been treated has made them hard-hearted, hard.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, I know that. I mean,
Did that answer the question?
yeah, that is a question. Makai, what's your thoughts on that?
Um, you say they're fearless. I believe they may be fearful. Um, One thing about the testing in which I've experienced over the years is that part of the fear comes from it's not relatable, um, such as a lot of the reading. Uh, when I have done my volunteering during these times of testing, I've quite have heard the kids say that the passages in which we have to interpret is not really doesn't really correlate to an understanding that they have, and
Culturally
so
sensitive. Say it. They're not culturally sensitive.
Mhm.
okay, isn't it right? It's not really it's not culturally feasible for them to relate to the subject matter, so it makes it difficult for them to um, break down the processes in which they're being asked
Mhm.
to determine out of the testing. Um, so I was wondering, has that been? I know that's been a complaint for a while. So has that been addressed um, with those that make up the testing, um, as well as giving the kids a history of who they are in relating to what math is and how culturally they can relate to math. I know quite often um, in a lot of underprivileged communities, a lot of the kids feel like it has nothing to do with them. So why should they put much stock into it? Uh, so that's one of the things I was wondering. Has those issues been addressed with those who make decisions as far as the testing process is concerned?
Yeah, there were lots of groups that talked about the testing not being culturally sensitive, and I'll give you an example of one of the things that we talked about when you ask about the definition of a toboggan. You know, for some children, a toboggan is a sled. Children that might live in Maine or where you from or whatever, they might refer to my toboggan. But if you ask my children, what is a toboggan? It's something you wear on your head when it's cold.
Completely different. Yeah.
Completely different. So if it's in a
Completely.
sentence, if it's in a sentence, and John took his toboggan, John took his toboggan up the hill. It don't quite make a lot of sense, right? It don't make so they can't really. Of course, they're gonna get that wrong because
Mhm.
of how it's seen. The other thing was what's the other one that they use? What is it? Uh, pay attention. That's what it was. Pay attention. Children, please pay attention. Children, please pay attention. Well, they associate the word pay with money.
Mhm.
I don't know what the hell attention is.
Mhm.
You talking to some kindergarten children, some first grade kids, some third grade kids. Nobody use the word pay attention in your house. In your house, you better listen. Stop. In my house, it was Argo. Ame. Argo. So I mean, there's so much and yes, there were groups who addressed the difference in testing, but it's never enough voices for those on the ground. There's never enough voices. I mean, it was being addressed at the state level, but it wasn't a state issue.
Can you speak to the could you speak to the trauma that causes, that testing causes?
Oh my God, there were so many kids that was throwing up every time. Children were sick to their stomachs, throwing up, having breakdowns, and some of everything. Yes, yes, it caused so much trauma, so much trauma. Listen, and it wasn't just black children or Spanish children. It was all children, all children. The board member even came to me because his child was held back. His child was held back, but they were throwing up on the test. Oh yeah, they were throwing up
Poor
on
kids.
the test. Yes,
Oh.
yes, these babies have gone through some trauma over the past. I told you I've been in this 50 years. These children have gone through serious trauma in these in the system. Serious trauma, and this is their father, their parents now. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? And some of my grandparents. Some of them children that I advocated for are now grandparents.
Mm.
Hey, just really quickly, and this is for both Makai and Gretchen as well, and you, Mama G. Last week we had on my friend Zach that was on, and one of the conversations that came up is this notion of, is there really enough activism that is out there now, and are people just kind of like going through the motions of activism? Because I know he's been frustrated because I mentioned it to Mama G when he's been to a couple of hearings and didn't see the kind of crowds that he would like to see. I think he did went to something at St. Joseph's and didn't see a big enough crowd, and actually went to an event a few days ago, and it was at St. Mark's, and it was a decent crowd. It had to do with the assassination of MLK, but also around gentrification and rezoning and a bunch of other things. But if that crowd was bigger, but even that crowd he didn't think was as much as he would have liked to see. So do you think that too many of our people are just going through the motions, and that we don't have the activism that say we had in the 60s, and I would even argue the
It's not.
70s? So I know both of you are
You
activists.
didn't have no activism in the '60s. Stop. The children were the ones that was doing the activism during the '60s. The older people got tired.
Mm.
They were afraid. They had seen too many killings. They had seen too many hangings. They had been told that you can't work on the farm. You can't be a sharecropper no more. Da 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 da. So when Dr. King came to Mississippi that last time, he didn't give 30 people to even come out. And
Mm.
then they locked him up, put him on a bond that was how many times, three, four, five times higher than than what the bonds were supposed to be. But thank God for the young people, which is why I say we need to be working with our younger people. Uh,
Mm.
the radio station and a young minister. What's the name of the group? What's her name? God, I can't even think of her name. She's out of DC. Children's Defense. Children's Defense Fund. They came in and they trained these children. They trained them how to demonstrate. They
Mm.
trained them how to demonstrate. They know Dr. King was gonna get locked up, and they knew that they were going to have to take his place. But when they asked him from the jail, can we use the children? Dr. King said no, but they did it anyhow. So when we look at that video with all those dogs and all this whatever, we need to always remember that that was not Dr. King. He was not there. So that's one thing. Now, what? Say the question again. Say it again, because I got sidetracked. I got sidetracked.
So I was just asking if our guest thought there was enough of an activism spirit, and to your point, there was a young lady here. There was a here at this concert, but she was with COM, and she was saying that a lot of the people that founded that station, which is a community radio station in Carrboro, they are now in their 60s, 70s, and older ages. But she was saying that they need some young people to come in there and get trained in radio production because they got this brand new equipment. So they need people that are willing to come to the world to learn how to learn.
Radio is a dinosaur. Radio, and this is on this,
Yeah,
is a dinosaur.
yeah,
Gone. Gone.
Well, well,
yeah.
as
This is
as I
done.
as I used to ask my uncle, who is one of the founding members of the Last Poets, where I got a lot of my uh, awakening and activism from. I used to ask him, growing into my time, and I asked Mama G just the other day, how do we make consciousness cool again? How do we make activism cool again? Because yes, in the 60s and 70s, it was cool to be an activist. It was cool to be conscious. Today, it's not cool anymore. So my thing is, how do we make it cool again? How do we make it something that the youth will inspire to be?
In the 60s and 70s, the youth were more affected. Everybody was affected. Everybody was affected in the 60s and 70s. So they heard it in their homes, just like me. I heard it in my homes. I heard it on the radio. I heard it on the television. I saw it in my communities. So it was a different feeling about. I knew it at 10 years old that I wanted to be an advocate. I knew that I wanted to be that
And
advocate.
I think we still hear it today. It's just that somehow we've become desensitized to it. And how do we resensitize ourselves to the things that we see every day? It's not like things have changed drastically to where there's no need for us to want to be conscious, and there's no need for us to want to be an activist. It's just that we become desensitized to it, or like I said, it's not cool anymore to want to be an activist or to want to see change happen within your lifetime. It seems to be then where the next generation or someone else will take care of it. It's not something that's personal
You
to
that's the word right there.
Mhm.
That's the word right there. It's not personal. Listen, we have what I call the pull of rich kids. I have what we call pull of rich kids. You see, during the 70s and during the 60s, that was my era. That was my era. And during that time, there was a consciousness about inequity. But my grandchildren say to me, "Oh, Grandma, you just prejudiced. You just what they don't see what we saw." If I say something about uh, uh, policy that's biased and that's racist or whatever, they defend it. Their friends, these are their friends. They sitting there eating lunch together, and they whatever. So they're not gonna let you say that about their friends. So it's a different mindset. It's a different mindset, because they don't. I'm not saying that we had to in the 70s. That's when North Carolina just integrated in 1972. We were the last of the massive resistance. The North had already integrated, and North Carolina, South Carolina, Southern states said we'll separate from the Union before we integrate. So we just got integration in 1972. So it was a different time. And I started to say, when you are affected, that's what makes people move. But if you feel like you're doing okay, and it's no fault of our children or anybody else. You know what I'm saying? It's just the way life unfolded. You know, you had so many things that was going on during that time. You had teenage pregnancy that was rampant. You had this thing with a lot of key children that was very rampant. Children staying in the house by themselves. They didn't have babysitters and whatever, so they were taking care of themselves. Husbands could not be in the home, and parents receive any type of subsidy. So that meant separation of families, with mom out of the home trying to work. That began that whole deterioration of family structure. So we got so freaking much. It's like an onion. We got so many areas that all contribute to this. Then you get this. When we talk about trauma, that's like the tree of life with all those limbs and whatever and beads and whatever. That's what it's like. That's what it's like. And because many times the history was so painful, was so painful to the elders. You ask about. I don't want to talk about that mess. I don't even want to talk about it. So that created a gap. That created a serious gap in helping people to understand what was going on. So as I was doing work back in 2005, and I was going into communities, knocking on doors and whatever, and I thought, and this was also during the time that they were doing the testing, and I just knew that they were going to tell me because I want to start an after school program, right? But I knew that I needed to assist the community and ask the community what they wanted. I had sense of know that I needed to do. So I put together this little survey. I went in and I sat down, ate pork chop, with them, you know. I ate dinner with them, whatever, and we talked and we talked. And they filled out the surveys. And when I got the surveys back, and I asked what did they want, what they wanted. Did they want a after school program? No. We can't always assume we know what they want. No, they wanted a park that their children could go to and sit down and play without drug dealers being in it. That's what they wanted.
Yeah, Mama G and Gretchen and Lakai, if you want to answer as well. I guess one of the things that I'm curious about, because you mentioned it earlier when you talked about words and everything like that, I sometimes wonder, because trauma has been something that people have been talking about lately and everything like that, but sometimes it's one of those words that I think gets misdefined, because some people, when they think about trauma, they think about hospital trauma, which is not the kind of necessary trauma that we're talking about. But I just wanted your take on that, because it's one of those words that can have a misdefinition because it has multiple definitions. So, Gretchen, any thoughts around that? Because
Yeah,
it's one of
I
the
that's a really good point. And I actually, most of the time, I don't use the word trauma when I'm talking with families. I just use overwhelming stress or too much stress or so much stress I can't function, so much stress, so that kind of thing. I just talk about stress because I think that any sort of stressful event, when it's not buffered by adequate resources, healthy coping skills, or support, is going to be experienced in a traumatic way. So that's one of the things that makes me think, like, when I'm talking to doctors, I'm like, stop trying to identify the kid who has the trauma and then do something different for him. Like, we should be doing this universally having trauma informed precautions. Like, we put on gloves to draw blood, universal. We don't go and read things. We don't decide this person. We should just be universally treating everybody at this point as though everyone would do better if they had a trauma informed response. And when I talk to people, when I was just thinking what you were saying, Geraldine, about this, like I think in medicine there's something similar, but it's also layered, and it has to do with how people don't want to do anything different and they only want to do what they were trained to do. And so I come along and I'm like, okay, so this is how we start responding to trauma, in the flow, in the moment, while you're doing what you're doing. And they're looking at me like, who is she? Like, and I've had people say like we need more of you, but you're like a unicorn. Are there any other doctors who think like this? And there are. And the interesting thing is, it's the doctors who have had, either they work with foster kids or youth who've experienced trauma, or their own kids have experienced some form of trauma, and they've seen how it affects their ability to access what they need in life, and that social thinning, where once that trauma happens, you may want to go and get a grant for your community to build a park and everything, and you may have the skills, but the first time you go and you ask a question, somebody says something and you shut down, you're like, never mind, I'm not going to do it, it's too scary, or something gets to you. And so it makes it hard to like make that change. And so that's why I feel like having people in the community, they're already there, kind of like you, Geraldine, but like you need help, like if you had pediatricians, family docs, physician assistants, nurse practitioners who are doing similar parallel work with families, in clinics, and then they could come with you to meetings and stuff. But I think health practitioners care. I think they're just also overwhelmed and stressed, sort of like teachers. But I get the sense that I can teach this in a way that is going to make healthcare providers realize that once they start doing this, they're going to love their job again. They're going to stop wanting to quit. They're going to stop counting down the days until they retire. And they're going to remember why they wanted to be a doctor. And it's all about wanting to connect with people. It's not about checking boxes. It's about like really getting what's going on. Like, how's Johnny? How's school going? You guys have been through a lot. How can I help? And letting the family lead it. But yeah, I tend to avoid the word trauma unless I know the family is talking about that. If they bring it up, then I'll go with their lead. But otherwise, I tend to talk about stress because I think that makes people shut down less. So,
have there been doctors? Are there doctors in Maine that are that you're mobilizing?
I think we're making some headway. So we're working on. I have a group of people who are very interested in trauma-informed care from a bunch of the different health systems in Maine. And we're going to bring together, you guys should come. You should both come. We should get Seth to bring you up here. So we're having an interdisciplinary trauma-informed summit where we're going to bring together schools, early childhood care workers, doctors, lawyers, judges, police officers, first responders, everybody. We want everybody to come together and see. And then I'm starting it with my talk, and I'm going to say that thing about that child who collapses and is having a seizure. You don't just scream at him to stop. Tell him he's messing up your day. You don't tell him he should be doing something else. Get over it. Like, he's having a brain problem and he needs help. So I'm going to do that thing. And we're going to try to get everybody to see how trauma is really, once you've experienced it temporarily, not permanently. If you get the help you need and the support and the resources, it changes the way your brain sees things. And you look around you and you say, nope, they're all saber-toothed tigers. None of those people are going to help me, which is what I think, your kids in the schools are feeling. They're like, none of these people are going to help me. None of these teachers care. And the teachers are so tired.
They don't care nothing about us. They don't care nothing about us. That's why we go. You got to. I heard this little boy say it to me, Mama G, you got to have something. You need something. You need to smoke because them folks get on your nerves. Jesus Christ. So that's self, what is it? Self-anesthetizing or whatever.
Medicating.
Medicating. You get that, so that they can make
wise kid there.
So they can make it through the day.
Right. Well, back to that standardized testing. I mean, I think when we're trying to mush all of the children into the same size, shape, and cube and put out a bunch of little cubes that all look alike and that's ridiculous. Like, what happened to actually teaching kids about things that they're interested in, and let some of those kids be the ones who go outside and work outside and don't sit in a chair all day. I mean, it just lost the plot.
What happened? Common Core.
Yeah.
Our national curriculum, Common Core. They used to say they're dumbing our children. They're dumbing down our children. They're dumbing down our children. They're dumbing down our children. And they're gone that they won't dumb them down because now they can't multiply because they got a calculator.
My son is like, why do I have to learn this? I can just do it on my phone.
The colleges are complaining. They come in and we got to teach them. Listen, Sachs did a survey, and the children who were graduating, I'm going to say North Carolina, but it may have been national, but I think it was North Carolina because Sachs did it. They are graduating in honors classes with that is equivalent to a 9th grade education. Graduating with academics, kudos, with an education that is equivalent to the 9th grade. Y'all don't know what I feel like or what I felt like. I needed it.
So
And you
frustrated. Yeah.
y'all talk about this shit for 50 years
Mm.
in the community, talking with the district, with legislators, with our Congress, and never no doggone support. I told you,
It's
when one
frustrating.
come, Geraldine Shemick, somebody heard get her out. No, just let her say what you got to say and get on out of here.
Mm.
Whatever I said at that minute is gone in this year and out that year. But if I come back with 10, 12 of you, they'll say, Geraldine and her group, don't worry about them. Let them have to say. We're not going to do it anyway. She ain't talking about nothing. Nothing. She ain't got no power. But if I come back with 200 people,
Mm.
100 people, 150 people, they changed that to, oh, that's the Mary Magdalene Ministries group. You know, they are real advocates around so and so and so and so and so and so and so. Then you get acknowledged. But
Mm.
until you show power,
Not till you're in. Wow.
until you show power,
Mm.
you just flip it off at the lips until you have power. And the people on the ground, the people that I needed to have power. Now, when the testing thing came, their children were being affected by the testing, so I was able to get them to help with advocating to get that 2001 Fair Testing Act implemented. But I mean, they got a crisis every day,
Mm.
every day, a crisis, putting out fires every day. Our city council, one of our city council people said to me that she was screaming at me at the top of her voice because I told her that she was not the same as these people on the ground. You are not the same. I'm a single parent. I don't care if you are a single parent. You are not the same as these folks. You're not living in a hotel.
Mm.
Your lights are not out. You're not couch surfing.
Mm.
You're not your ass whooped every day. When mama's over here sick and I got to go take care of my mama and cheering too, you are not living what they are living. You are not, don't keep associating yourself because you black and single and single parent that you're the same as these parents over here who are suffering.
Mm.
Because then you make people think that, well, if she can do it, she can too. But what you've gone through might not be what they've gone through, and you got a whole different DNA. I mean, I know I got a DNA that says fight, 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 fight. I got it from my dad and I got it from my mama, so it's innate in me. But that ain't innate in everybody.
Mm.
That's not innate in everybody. I used to always say, why can't they see? Why can't these people see? When I began to see that whole cycle of the school to prison pipeline,
Mm.
homeschool prison cycle, I used to be so mad. Why can't they see? Why can't they see? What the hell is wrong with you? It's a good thing God is a forgiving God because I have cussed so much. So much.
Oh.
Like you said, for giving God, and almost time to wrap up and everything. But yeah, a lot of the kids are getting caught up in Google, and it's kind of like what you were saying, Gretchen. They're getting caught up in Google University and Chat GPT and a bunch of other things that can give them the answers and all
They don't
along
need to
those
learn
lines.
it. Yep.
Trying to get us caught up in it. Talking about, are you over 55 and not experienced GT? We got the class for you.
Oh.
So no, they trying to get everybody.
Mm.
They don't want nobody left behind.
Literally, literally, they don't want anybody left behind. It was another great conversation.
Oh
You
my
had two more
God.
amazing guests, and like I said, we had Zach, and this time we had Gretchen, and uh, definitely
Makai.
Mikai and everything. So definitely a great guest and everything. So hopefully they'll be back on another episode. But we're going to get on out of here with another powerful episode and great conversation. So you ready to get on out of here?
Thank you so much, and it's so
Yes.
good to see you again. And
Thank you.
make sure to hook me up with your.
I sure will. I'm going to do it as soon as I get off. Okay. Nice to meet you both. Okay.
It was
Take
nice to
care.
meet you guys. Wonderful
Makai.
conversation.
Peace and
Wonderful.
love. Thank you so
Love
much,
you.
brother.
Yes.
Thank you. Now I'll send
My
you
pleasure.
the link to
All right.
for tomorrow night. Mark,
Okay.
again,
Yep.
peace and blessings. Thank you so much.
No problem.
All right, now good night.
Good night.
Blessings.
Get out here with a couple of commercials and PSAs, including one from a lady that started her spice company based on her dad, Can Do Spices, and she has a show along with her cohort, Barbara Smith. So Barbara Smith and Shauna Smith, no relations, ironically, even though they have the same last name, but Smith is so common. But she created Can Do Spice, and you'll learn about that as well as keeping our kids safe, which is part of what we've been talking about. But let's get on out of here, and we'll be back next week with another exciting show. And I know that Mama G will have more great guests, and she'll be dropping those pearls like she always does. Dropping those pearls as always. So get ready to get on out of here.
You know how people love to enjoy food and don't understand how to flavor their food or how to replicate a meal? They're interested in supplements but don't know where to begin? Well, what I do is I take the guesswork out of enjoying flavor and wellness with my flavorful spice blends so that they can create delicious meals with healing benefits. Can Do Spice was created to help cooks at any level enjoy healing through food. Every spice blend was designed to give added health benefits of natural herbs. Every blend is complete. There's no need to add any additional spice for a delicious meal. Saving you time and money while adding supplements to your meals can be both tasty and fun. My earliest memories in the kitchen began with my father, Kenny Can Do Bond, so it was fitting that I would name this line after him. I have always looked to natural remedies to supplement the body, and I found myself hiding herbs and minerals in foods for my family. That's when it hit me. Everyone needs Can Do Spice. Everyone should be having this. It's an exclusive brand for cooks at any level who want to create flavorful dishes with healing benefits that can satisfy the body and soul. Add a little spice to your life. Give Can Do Spice a try.
If you're talking, they will hear you.
We all want our kids to grow up safe and healthy, so we show them how. And we tell them with honest conversations that let them know what we expect. Not just one time, but every chance we get. That's especially important when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. Kids not only need to know the dangers and how to avoid them, they need to hear it often from you. And when it comes to pain medications, opioids, they need to know that they should never be taken without a prescription and never shared with friends or family. It's dangerous and illegal. So talk with your kids and guide them through the challenges of growing up safe and healthy. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
So